If you want to know how our childhood experiences completely shape our reality and our inner psyche, our beliefs, then this podcast is for you. In today's episode of the Inner Workshop, I'm going to be talking about my experience with childhood bullying and how it completely shaped my reality and how that led to me going through a spiritual awakening and actually connecting with myself on a deeper level than I ever knew was possible. So if you want to hear about this experience where I dive deep into the details of what actually happened, and then also how that led to my spiritual awakening and how I'm doing now, then this podcast is for you. I cannot wait to share this story with you guys. So thank you so much for being here, and yeah, let's jump straight in. Okay, so before we jump into this podcast, I just want to say thank you so much for your support. Thank you so much for all your likes and your comments. I love connecting with you guys. If you did get any value from this podcast, just leave a little like and a little comment because it really does help. When I was young, I had quite a lot of experience with bullying, to be honest. It began when I was in primary school and it also happened again when I was in secondary school. So this was like a pattern. Both times with my best friend, and they were different best friends. And so when I was in primary school, my first ever best friend, we were really close. Our parents were really close, and we would like spend time with our families together and also at school. But what everyone didn't know was that during this time, the girl that I was best friends with was actually treating me in quite an abusive way. And she would basically just go silent on me, and she would do that thing where, you like ice someone out, like give them the silent treatment. And I would ask her, like, what's going on? Like, I would be really upset. It would really hurt me. And she would just never tell me. Like, she wouldn't want to talk about it. Specifically, this one time where we were in the playground, this girl and another girl, they found like a folder, and they had said to me, Amy, you're not allowed to see in the folder, and this is private between us two. But then they would like laugh and like make it pretty clear that there was energy coming from them towards me that was kind of nasty. And so I would be just distraught and upset, and it would be really, really sad for me. I would feel so lonely. To be honest, I was really young at this point, so I don't fully like remember it as clearly as I do remember the secondary school one. But I was speaking about this in my shadow work episode where I went into a really deep shadow work session, and it brought up a memory from being in the playground when I was in the primary school. And this memory was like me basically being in the playground on my own, and they were writing in this folder. I didn't know what they were writing in the folder, but it was excruciating. It was like such a panicky feeling that I'd brought into my adulthood. And so yeah, watch the shadow work episode if you want to learn more about that, because I really do go into that into more depth and how I managed to heal that by doing shadow work. You'll learn a lot from listening to that podcast episode. It's funny because actually a few days later, my mum has her friend come up to her and she's like, I'm so sorry about what the girls have been doing to Amy. And so this lady was the mother of one of the girls that was writing in the folder. And she said to my mum, I can't believe it, but I found this folder in my daughter's room and it says all of these nasty things about Amy in it. And they had written in it things that they were going to do to me. And then she ended up really apologizing, like getting her daughter to like really apologize about it. And that kind of stopped there, like with that. But then the other girl, my best friend at the time, would continue to treat me pretty badly. And I know she has her own trauma and things, so I don't have any hate towards her anymore. I'm actually very grateful for these situations because I wouldn't have expanded as much as I have now if I didn't go through it, and I wouldn't have as much compassion for others if I didn't go through that. So I really do think it was necessary to happen. And then when I went into secondary school, it's funny actually, because when I was in primary school and I was best friends with this girl, there was another girl. And I remember thinking, I wish she was my best friend because she's so lovely. And then we went into secondary school, she became my best friend. And I was so happy and we got on so well and everything was so good. And then one day she decided she didn't want to speak to me and this all started happening again. But this time it was like, I think it was way worse because I just remember it being way worse. I remember it impacting me. I was friends with this girl and she was like very pretty and she had a lot of attention from people. And one day she decided that she didn't want to be friends with me anymore. Like literally the day before that, we were best friends. We were laughing our heads off. I literally to this day do not know what I did or like what changed her mind, because next day I came into school and she just completely ignored me, acted like I was just not there, I didn't exist, and managed to get the whole group to do the same. Like I came into the playground and they all just said to me, you know, this is like, we're gonna have a private chat and you're not invited. That just started and then it went on for months, and I was literally so messed up because of that. I felt like I was just the weirdest person in the world. I remember starting to think like so many bad things, but obviously I don't remember thinking these things about myself, but over time, like where I've done so much work on myself, I realized how many bad beliefs I picked up about myself. I felt so ashamed of myself. I just thought, if this is happening to me, I think I just started to believe that I was just very weird, very ugly. When someone abandons you and you don't know why, you'll start to just think every possible bad thing about yourself. And sometimes I think we can start to just pick up new beliefs that we are just bad, or we try and find things about ourselves that maybe we don't like about ourselves, and we start to believe them to be the reason that these people don't want to be friends with us. This went on for months, by the way, that no one would talk to me. I used to hate break and lunch times because I would be like wandering around on the playground on my own, and it was just so embarrassing. I felt humiliated. I didn't want anyone to know that I had no friends. So I would do whatever I could to make sure that people didn't find out what was happening to me. And I can't even remember how, to be honest. Like, I feel like a lot of this was such a blur. But I remember just wanting to go back to class and just be sitting in class because I didn't have to worry about other people finding out that I was being bullied. And so I remember one day coming into my Spanish class and I was like one of the first ones sitting in the class, and then the girls showed up and they all ran as fast as they could to sit in the seats that were not next to me. And then the last girl that had to sit next to me, because there was one seat that was left, like she was like in front of my face being like, oh, for God's sake, I have to sit next to her. I don't know, like literally treating me like I was like a disease, you know? And I can't explain how like gut-wrenching, how like bad that is for the human psyche, to have a group of people to act like you are a disease, like there is something wrong with you and that you are not welcome in the group, and also to not know why people are doing that. There's no explanation, there's no communication of, you know, have I done something wrong? So it like started off all these questions of like, what is wrong with me? Like, why are they doing this? I wasn't so confident in myself to just be like, I don't need these people. I was like putting a lot of my value into them. I had to learn the hard way how to really value myself and really stand up for myself and not allow people to treat me like that. I do believe that this whole situation led me to my spiritual awakening, which is why I'm so grateful that it happened. It was an interesting path because when I was going through all this at school, I remember thinking to myself, if I had a boyfriend, then I would be complete. I would no longer be depressed. I would no longer be lonely. And so I would then begin my journey of putting my value and putting my happiness, placing that into more external relationships. So whereas, you know, at school, maybe I would put it into girls and best friends and in that kind of relationship, it then moved on to me becoming quite desperate for the relationship with a guy because I just wanted love. I think that's ultimately what it came down to. But I didn't realize that actually, like, there's so many more ways to feel love. I just thought maybe from watching Disney when I was younger, who knows, like all of the programming and all of the like conditioning that probably led me to believe that, okay, I just need a boyfriend and then I'll be fine. Like I won't have to be so depressed. And so I spent a good few years getting in relationships with different people that weren't quite right for me. I remember this one time where I went for a breakup with this guy and it was really painful, and that also like led me to start meditating more consistently. And so I was meditating and I realized I was having all these negative thoughts about myself. The girls at school would come up in my meditations a lot. They were in my subconscious a lot. And like, so I wouldn't be thinking about them throughout the day consciously, but I would be noticing in my meditations that I would be subconsciously, like they were lingering in my subconscious a lot. In my dreams there was a lot of emotional attachment to them, meaning like I maybe had anger that was unresolved towards them, or I would have these beliefs about myself that were very much linked to them times. And I was able to really observe how all of this was playing out in my subconscious. And this is why I'm also so passionate about teaching people meditation, because it has completely changed my life in terms of just observing myself and observing where my patterns and my beliefs about myself come from. And so that is what started off my spiritual awakening, because I started to observe myself. I stopped becoming so identified with all of the thoughts that I was having, all the beliefs that I was having, and I started to realize, actually, like, I am not these thoughts, I am not these beliefs, and I started to heal that. It took me a good few years to really, really get over the whole like high school period thing. I would say I'm healed from it, but then again, I definitely have things still come up. Like even 2 weeks ago, like something came up and I had to really allow myself to go through the process and be with that part of me to understand it. That's just the nature of our healing, is things sometimes come up multiple times. Even when you think you've healed them, they can come up and be triggered again. So everything comes together so perfectly, because I wanted to be a business owner, but I also was lacking a lot of confidence. And so when it comes to being self-employed and being an entrepreneur, what I realized along my journey is this involves relationships with other human beings. And the better your relationships with other human beings, the more successful that you're likely to be. And so this had forced me to really work on myself in terms of building my confidence and allow myself to really connect with others. And there was a lot of blocks that were getting in the way of this. And these blocks were a lot to do with my self-confidence and how anxious I would get around people, and my view of myself. Like how I felt about myself when I would interact with others was subconsciously kind of affecting how I would come across. And also there would be a lot of fears that were blocking me from speaking to people. Like I remember when I first started business, I was so nervous to speak to people. I have come such a long way. Everything I have done to get to this point, whether it is shadow work or meditation, I use all of these techniques to really show others how they can reconnect with themselves and how that they can unblock whatever it is that is stopping them from manifesting the life that they really desire. And whether that is wanting to start a business or wanting a relationship, there is so many things that can get in the way when it comes to our subconscious blocks. And so this is what I have been doing for years, and this is why I speak about this stuff on my channel and through my podcast. My work is to teach other people what I have learned and how they can support themselves and also become really good at doing all this stuff themselves, become really good at finding blocks themselves, releasing the blocks, and also connecting with their intuition so that they can really live a life that is more fulfilling. If you have had any experiences like this, please do share in the comments. If you have any questions or you are going through something similar and you have any questions, then please do put them in the comments, or you can message me on Instagram. All of my socials are in the description box. So yes, I hope everyone has a beautiful day, and I will see you in the next podcast. Peace, namaste. Have a beautiful day.